This car just ran through a whole crowd of Chicago police officers. Oh my God. Oh my God. I cannot believe I just saw that happen.
America, what you just saw happen on the corner of Loomis and Roosevelt near west side of Chicago early Sunday morning. 5 Chicago police officers were on foot trying to clear hundreds of teenagers from the street. A blue sedan drove the wrong way down the road, plowed through the officers, hit a squad car, hit a pole, and hit a fence. All 5 went to the hospital. The 18-year-old driver, Rashad Johnson from Plainville, Illinois, was caught a half a mile away and is now facing 5 counts of attempted first-degree murder, plus 8 additional charges on top of that. The mayor of Chicago posted about it on social media. He talked about parents needing to know where their kids are. He didn't say one other thing, not one word about what he signed 11 months ago, not one word about the man he put in charge of Chicago streets, who specifically asked him for a tool that Sunday morning proved the city actually needed. The tool existed, the cops who run the city asked for it, and the mayor who vetoed it, that same mayor who posted about parenting advice after 5 officers ended up in the hospital. Here's the name nobody in this story's coverage is connecting to Sunday morning. Superintendent Larry Sneeling, Johnson's own appointment, Johnson's own police chief, asked for this specific tool. Johnson overruled him, and the person who said publicly on the floor of the city council that this exact outcome was coming, he said it 10 months ago to Johnson's face in front of cameras. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Facts first, because the story is too important to get wrong. May 25th, 2026, Memorial Day weekend, just after midnight, a crowd of teenagers started gathering near Loomis and Roosevelt near the west side. By 3 a.m., the crowd had grown to hundreds. Witnesses described cars parked illegally for blocks, teenagers on top of vehicles, noise filling the neighborhoods through the night. Chicago Police Department moved in on foot to disperse the crowd. Watch what one of the neighbors who lived there said about what it felt like watching it build.
When I say that it looked like millions of kids out here. Kids were all on top of their cars. They were stopping in the middle of the street, twerking and it was ridiculous.
Neighbors, some just returning from late night shifts, others already settling in for the evening, described the scene became increasingly chaotic between Troop and Loomis streets along Roosevelt Road, eventually shutting down the area. They say the loud commotion and hundreds moving through the neighborhood well past 3 a.m. turned the night into a disruptive, sleepless ordeal for them.
Screaming and hollering. I've never seen anything like that. I couldn't figure out what was going on.
I was livid. Do you hear me? And I'm still livid about that. I can't believe it. I cannot believe how they allowed that. They allowed that.
They allowed that. That's her words. And the people running the city allowed it as well. The same government managing your retirement is making that same calculation. This is exactly why I want to bring you today's video sponsor, and I'm proud to do it. This is exactly why I keep my generational wealth and my money in places that politicians and people can't veto. Today's video sponsor is Noble Gold Investments. Noble Gold moves your existing 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver held in your name in an IRS approved vault. We're talking about 0 taxes, 0 penalties, you guys. Gold just hit $5,600 this year, up 65% in 2025, the best year since 1979. Get this, new qualified accounts get a free 1/10 ounce gold coin worth over $1,000. Check out Noble Gold at noblegoldinvestments.com/Tyson or call 877-646-5347. Now here's where the official narrative needs one honest correction before we move any further here. Alderman Jason Irving, whose ward this is actually in, said this entire situation was not a pre-planned teen takeover. It was an after prom party from a nearby housing development that escalated out of control. I'm giving that to you guys because that's what's on the official record, and it's true. And it also doesn't change a single thing about the snap curfew and what it was actually built to do. Because after prom parties that turn into hundreds and hundreds of teenagers blocking intersections at 3 a.m. are exactly the kind of gathering tool that this was designed to address before anybody ended up in the hospital.
Police saying the injured officers, 5 in all, were on foot, dispersing the teens when a blue sedan traveling westbound in an eastbound lane struck them, drove over the curb, finally coming to a stop after striking a CPD squad, a pole, and a fence. Marcellus Johnson saw it happen and later took this picture of the offender's vehicle.
He wasn't going super fast, but he was going fast enough where when he hit them, he basically knocked some off the car and they rolled over to the ground and some other stuff.
And the Chicago Police Department union president, speaking after the incident, said those officers were legally entitled to shoot into that car as it came towards them, and they didn't. That restraint, my friends, is why Mr. Rashad Johnson is alive and in custody as we film this video. It's not why he drove into him.
Authorities say a weapon was recovered and the suspect is now in custody. According to CPD data, detectives have launched over 20 shooting investigations citywide since Friday.
Now watch the mayor's first public statement. Pay attention to what he says. And I want you to pay really close attention to what he doesn't say.
The accountability mechanism cannot just be with teenagers, right? I know where my son was at 3 o'clock in the morning. After he went to prom, he came home. And we need parents to ensure that their children are coming home.
Here's the mechanics of the snap curfew, simple in plain English here. Last summer, June 2025, the Chicago City Council voted 27-22 to pass an ordinance giving CBP, Chicago Police Department Superintendent Larry Sneeling, not the mayor, not an alderman, the power to declare an emergency curfew anywhere in the city just within 30 minutes of notice. A large gathering is forming and threatening to turn violent. Sneeling can use the issue, the curfew, and give the crowd a 30-minute window to clear out before enforcement kicked in. That was the whole mechanism. A 30-minute legal on-the-clock situation for a crowd, then the authorities act. The ordinance itself passed. 27 aldermen voted yes to this. Then watch what Brandon Mohawk Johnson said 30 minutes after the vote.
I will veto this ordinance because it is counterproductive to the progress that we have made in reducing crime and violence in our city. It would create tensions between residents and law enforcement at a time when we have worked so hard to rebuild that trust.
Now, I'm going to be completely straight with you, my friends. Nobody can tell you with absolute certainty that the snap curfew, if you would have prevented what happened at that intersection over the weekend. That is not the argument. The argument is documented here. Johnson's own superintendent, his own police chief, his own appointment asked for a specific tool. He told the city council this is what they needed when these gatherings actually happened. Brandon Mohawk Johnson, vetoed it. And Sunday morning is exactly the gathering type that Sneeling said the tool was built for. That is not speculation. That is the actual receipt. Johnson's full veto statement also said, and this is in public record, that extended police power without checks and balances has not bodied well with Black and brown people in this country. The ACLU raised constitutional concerns about the ordinance's vagueness about the entire situation. Those are real debates. The question every alderman now has to answer is whether fixing the language and vagueness and passing a better ordinance was possible, because vetoing it and replacing it with absolutely nothing is also a policy choice. And Sunday is what nothing, underline nothing, looks like at 3 a.m. Now watch what the people in Johnson's own city were already telling him before anybody got hit by a car.
Well, our concerns is that we will relive history here and that the teens will now think that they can come back and take over the street and terrorize the residents.
These are the scenes that Deborah Gershbein remembers all too vividly. She was caught in the middle of one teen takeover in late March.
When you have hundreds of people in one place out of control, there's bound to be problems.
The mayor promised to veto the curfew ordinance, calling it bad public policy.
To move on a policy that we already know historically leads to criminalization and incarceration, why on God's green earth would I actually repeat the sins of those who came before us?
Deborah Gershbein thinks the mayor is out of touch with the reality that she and her neighbors have had to deal with.
I don't think he really listened to our concerns.
Now, here's something that a lot of people aren't connecting. July 17, 2025, 1 month before Johnson vetoed the snap curfew, Alderman Brian Hopkins stood on the floor of Chicago City Council and said the following, and I'm going to read this directly. I'm going to go ahead and place it on the screen, and I'll read it directly from public record of that meeting. The city of Chicago needs to know when the next violent teen takeover happens. When bloodsheds, it's on them. He said that. He said it on camera in a council chamber to Johnson's face 10 months before Sunday morning.
It is the necessary step, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where 20, 30, 40 years from now, we look back and we end up engineering the same type of carceral state that we're trying to disrupt.
The mayor leaning into his summer programs and jobs for youth, which he's credited for a drop in crime. But at least one downtown neighborhood group says the curfew also has the safety of kids in mind.
It's not about just protecting the neighborhood and the businesses there. We had a tool, it was recognized today, and that finally passed, that I'm excited about. To veto this without a backup plan, I don't know if that's the best path forward.
Now watch what the Democrat from Johnson's own party said on national TV the morning after Sunday.
I am tired of hearing the conversation, whether it's from the mayor, superintendent, or any of my colleagues for that matter, when they say, well, where are the parents? The parents aren't paying attention because they are receiving no penalty for the actions of their children. And what I had introduced would either increase the citation, it would increase their need to do community service, or it would require them to go get family counseling, which was my preferred choice, because ultimately the goal has to be to get parents to be more engaged and be better parents and aware of what their children are doing if you ever want to get a handle on these issues. We cannot continue down this path, so we need to do something quickly, and I think that we have the options to do it if we have the will to act.
And here's the line Lopez said on Fox News Sunday, and notice who he was talking about. Brandon Johnson does not know the meaning of the word consequences. That is a Democrat, my friends, from Johnson's own city council. He is on national TV the morning after 5 officers were hospitalized, saying the mayor does not understand what consequences actually mean. When your own party puts you on a Fox News cycle here the day after police officers get run over by Rashad Johnson, the political damage here is not coming from the right. It's coming from inside the room. Trust me, you guys, this isn't the first time that we watch this play run out. Newsom in California, he signed sanctuary city laws. He blocked enforcement tools. He called the mechanisms that the laws enforced cruel and unnecessary. And when the consequences actually arrived in California, chaos, crime, the question of whether a state this size can actually function, he called it a failure of federal policy. It's the exact same play. In Houston, we saw this. We covered this on this channel. The city took $110 million from Texas under a federal cooperation agreement, then passed a law specifically designed to block ICE cooperation. 9 days after that vote, the state comptroller froze Houston's monthly checks. 9 days. Built a policy, block the tools, and act shocked when the outcome actually happens. And now we're seeing it again in Chicago with Brandon Mohawk Johnson. He vetoed a tool his own superintendent specifically asked for. Use the cops' own crime declining numbers, however you view that, you know my point of view on that, to justify it. Issued a veto letter about theoretical future state, and then Sunday morning arrived at Loomis and Roosevelt. And his answer was to post about parenting.
There's been issues there over the last couple of months where violent crowds showed up, including a teen apparently with a flamethrower. This weekend, there were also planned teen takeovers in Pontiac, Michigan, but the mayor there They apparently did the right thing. They had police literally stationed at every single major intersection, Nicole. They were ready for it. They saw on social media that they were getting ready, so they had all the cops out and they were able to stop it.
Now watch what a violence prevention worker, we already know how I feel about those people, who was already on the ground at Loomis and Roosevelt, for 8 hours, said what they were dealing with.
We had front lines with Chicago police pushing the crowd away when this happened. And unfortunately, this vehicle just drove through and hit several police officers and teens. And it turned real bad. And then even after the fact, there was still a lot of kids out, still hanging out and partying.
It should be fines for all of that. It comes down to some type of reprimanding. Because at the end of the day, it's unacceptable.
There are two political realities coming in June that every person watching this needs to understand. First, we have the snap curfew override vote. Hopkins needs 34 aldermen to override that particular veto from Brandon Johnson. He had 27. He's short 7. As of Sunday morning, those 7 aldermen have something that they didn't have in July 2025. They have new footage of 5 officers on the ground on Loomis and Roosevelt getting hit by a car. They have an 18-year-old from Plainville charged with 5 counts of attempted first-degree murder. They have Alderman Lopez going on national television saying the mayor does not understand what the word consequences mean.
I don't think many of my colleagues have the will to act because an angry parent could become an angry voter. And as we're all looking towards re-election, they're going to have to deal with that. But I think that there's a question of moral clarity that needs to be evoked here, which is at what point do leaders lead? And we need to lead. We know what we need to do, and we need to do it now.
Second, we have Rashad Johnson. He's 18 years old. He's from Plainville. I said that numerous times in this video, probably a little bit too much. He drove the wrong way down the street and hit 5 human beings with the car. 5 counts of attempted murder, 8 additional charges. The prosecution is ongoing. The DA's office is reviewing whether any charge upgrades are going to be necessary, given the severity of the injuries. The legal story runs parallel with the political one, and both are heading towards the same June council meeting.
The police union president said the administration needs to do more to protect officers. The 5 officers struck by that car are lucky to be alive.
A vehicle is a deadly weapon.
America, here's the frame that is not in any coverage of this story yet. Johnson's veto letter cited declining crime in Chicago as proof the snap curfew wasn't needed. We know how those crime statistics work. That crime decline was built on the same officers who were standing at Loomis and Roosevelt at 3:20 in the morning. The same officers who had their days off canceled for Memorial Day weekend because Chicago PD leadership already knew the weekend was at high risk. He used the results to deny their request. 5 of them found out Sunday what that decision costs. And here's the political calculation nobody is actually calculating. If this override vote comes back in June and reaches 34, Johnson faces a choice that didn't exist in 2025. He can let the ordinance become law without his signature, sign it, or veto it a second time. A second veto time, you guys, signed after 5 officers were hospitalized, is exactly the scenario the tool was specifically built for, is a different document than the first one. Nobody in his office wants to write that letter. The 7 aldermen who hold those swing votes know it. That is the real pressure on the June council meeting. Not the public debate, but the private calculation about what a second veto costs everybody in the room. This is the same playbook every single time. Block the tool, cite the progress, act shocked at the outcome. Newsom did it. Houston did it. Now Chicago's doing it again. Snealing asked. Johnson refused. 5 officers found out who was right. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.